Okay, we'll get started. We'd like to announce we had a vote for player captains the other day. Our captains for the 2023 season, as voted on by the players, are on defense, Shaq Thompson, Brian Burns, special teams, Johnny Hecker. On offense, it's Bryce Young, Adam Thielen, and Taylor Moton. So excited about those 6 guys being captains. Good guys, good leaders, and good players. All eyes are on Atlanta, getting on the road, starting a season with a division opponent on the road. That's about as good as it can get. We have a lot of respect for this Atlanta team. They're very well coached. Arthur Smith does a great job. Obviously, their offenses are, they've established that they know how to run the football, can be dynamic in the play-action game. On defense, they've done a lot of work to ramp up that defensive front to affect the passer better. So it'll be a good challenge and test for us up front. And then on special teams, right, they got the all-time great Cordell Patterson. So great opportunity for our special teams unit to go up against one of the best all-time. So looking forward to the challenge. We got to have a good week of preparation, every day locked in and focused on the details.
Frank, when you guys were doing this vote, obviously Brian's dealing with his situation, but what do you think that means that he has still got that backing while he kind of handles his own personal situation?
I think it just shows the respect that he has in the locker room. The player and the leader. He is a great player, but make no mistake about it, he's a great leader, and the guys recognize both those things.
Right. Obviously, you mentioned Atlanta's great running attack. They're also one of the most disciplined teams in the league.
Yeah.
How does that affect you defensively? What have you worked with the guys on to get them prepared for that?
Yeah, no, this is one of the, as far as penalties go, one of the fewest penalized teams in the league. Again, that's just evidence of a disciplined team, good coaching. So, hats off to them, right? I mean, their philosophy is make the opponent beat you. That's a good philosophy. So, we have a similar philosophy. We don't want to play scared. There's going to be some penalties in the game, so it's always that fine line. We want to be aggressive. We want to push it as much as we can, but we want to play smart and disciplined as well.
Do you expect Brian to be at practice and participate today?
As I've said, I'm not going to speak on behalf of Brian. I'll let him speak for himself.
Does that mean you don't anticipate him being out there, though?
I'm going to let him speak for himself.
Has there been any discussion with Brian to say, with you not participating in practice, to stay away from the facilities until things are completed? Have you guys had any discussions like that?
I really don't want to get into the private discussions with him. What I can tell you about the nature of all the discussions are, that Brian is focused on getting himself ready and our team ready to have the best season possible. And so that's where all the attention has been.
Frank, one of the options you guys as a team would be to fine him for conduct detrimental. Is that something that's been discussed?
Listen, we all know how this works, right? I've been in this business for 30-some years, a player and a coach, and understand that, there's a player perspective that we all have to respect and understand that player has to do what he has to do to get what he needs to try to get. We also, and that's important, and I understand that we love and respect Brian for that. I also understand that there's a business side over here, and the business side says that if the player's under contract, he's expected to play. I'm just the head coach. I'm just trying to get ready for Atlanta, right? So all eyes are focused on Atlanta. What we talked about, we addressed it as a team, so we, hey, this is what it is. We trust that the process will work itself out. We're focused on getting ready for the Atlanta Falcons. That's really the business side has its position, the player has its position. We focus on Atlanta.
Frank, in talking about getting ready for Atlanta, Bryce going into his first start, how do you kind of balance the let's get Bryce ready for this week in Atlanta versus kind of the long view of his career?
Yeah. The great thing about the season is when you dial it down to one game at a time, you're trying to really tightly define what you're going to do and why you're going to do it. And then you realize that over the course of a season and a career, you're building pieces and a foundation to his career, to all of our players. But since the question is about Bryce, you can't put all those places you can't put all the pieces in place in 1 week. So we have to be patient. We understand that, hey, you play a team like Atlanta, that brings certain things out. We're going to try to do certain things on offense. And so he and our offense, we learn it one piece at a time. And you really learn it best when you get tested and the crucible is the hottest and the heat of the game, and it all counts the most. So we'll be patient with that, but understand the urgency to each week.
Frank, understanding that you need to prepare for all contingencies as the head coach, was this situation with Brian something that maybe Scott or Samir had said this might happen, or were you surprised maybe a week ago when this all kicked off?
Honestly, nothing, you know, I mean, like I said, I don't want to sound like there's a lot of things I don't know, but, you know, 30 years of being in this business, this is par for the course. You know, these things, it's the NFL. I've been a part of a lot of different situations as a player and as a coach. I'm interested in what's best, you know, for the team and for the player. I think those things can both be true. You can understand both sides of the equation. That's how I feel. And, you know, but at the same time, the one thing that really speaks to all of us, I really believe, is we understand we have to find a way to compartmentalize certain things and minimize distractions. And to Brian's credit, he hasn't made himself a distraction. And I give him, I respect him a lot for the way he's handled that. He has not made himself, he's done everything he can to not make himself a distraction to this team. And that's just evidence to the kind of leader he is.
Frank, are you approaching this as if he doesn't get a contract that he's not going to play Sunday? I mean, as a coach,
I don't know the answer. I mentioned I don't know. I really don't know, but I'm not approaching it that way. I'm approaching it like I know 30 years tells me anything's possible. Literally anything's possible. So we'll just keep moving forward.
Frank was listed as the unofficial depth chart as the starter. Is that kind of where you're going? And
Who?
Chandler.
Yeah, Chandler.
On the right guard. Is that where you're going?
Yeah, he'll start at right guard.
Frank, you brought up healthy tension. I know you don't want to speak for Brian, but how are you as a staff handling this tension and planning for this week?
It's really no different than, it's different, but it's not. It's not apples to apples. But if a player gets injured, you know, I mean, what happens if a guy had pulled this week? You know, you adjust, you know. So you just look at this like, hey, player's not available. You know, if a player's not available for a practice or for a game or whatever the situation is, this is for coaches. This is like what we do.
One thing you saw with Bryce, one moment or thing you saw that made you say he's ready to be a starter week one?
For Bryce, it was the cumulative effect of everything that he's done, the cumulative effect of, you know, who he is as a person. Listen, I don't want to overstate this. I've said this many times. Obviously, we think very highly of him, but this isn't going to be a cakewalk. This is going to be fight and scratch every step of the way he's got to fight to get better. He's a really, really, really good player, but he's got a lot to learn. I have a lot to learn. This is our first year as a staff, a new offense. We got a lot to learn. So we do that while we're in business, while we're rolling along, and that's what we're going to do. And excited he's our leader on offense, and have confidence he's going to grow into the player that we all want him to be.
Frank, could you expand on what you said about Brian not making this a distraction? Because I think from the outside, people would assume that it would.
He's been in the building. He's in there lifting weights. He's in meetings. He's not been a distraction. You know, he's missed a couple practices. You know, he's missed a couple practices. So he's been a complete pro.
With Atlanta, Patterson's a very unique player, but you guys are kind of uniquely fit to kind of in practice to kind of simulate what he can do with Laviska. Is that your plan this week? And if so, how does that affect how he's used with the offense in planning?
Right. Yeah, Cordell's a weapon, right? I mean, he's an exciting, you know, it's fun to be able to go up against him and how he has continually reinvented himself, okay? Do we have a little bit of a similar vision for Laviska? Yeah, I mean, but visions have to work themselves out, you know. Sometimes it works out just like you expect it to, and other times it takes twists and turns that you never expected. So we'll take it day by day. I think it does help. You know, we might use Laviska some to imitate Cordell, but honestly, we got to get Laviska ready to be Laviska. And so don't want to overuse him at the same time.
We're going to do 2 more questions, and we're going to get Bryce in.
Frank, at what point do you rule Brian out for Sunday?
Sunday, if he's not, but again, I'm not, it doesn't really, it's a fair question. I mean, obviously, it's the question, I understand, a very fair question. But, like, my mind's not even going there. It's really not. Like, my mind is going to today's practice. And we'll deal with each day as it comes.
The Falcons have kind of revamped their defense. What have you seen when watching tape of them?
The Falcons' defense? Their starters haven't played a ton during the preseason, but, they've revamped that front, and they're pretty formidable. When you look at the pieces that they've added a lot of pieces to that defensive front that you would think is going to make an impact. Last year, when you looked at their team, statistically, where they were weak was they were ranked 31st against, as far as affecting the quarterback and sacks. So they've, to their credit, they've addressed it. They, just like us, they got to see how it all comes together as a unit. They got to test that as a unit, and we're doing the same on our side.
Frank,
All right, I'm sorry, this is the last one from Steve.
Frank, the NFL always tries to put some interesting scheduling quirks, I guess, in their schedule. What is it like going back to Atlanta? Obviously, it was your first game here and at Atlanta, and what do you remember about that? What do you remember about that game?
This is a cool moment for me, but like I've said a couple times that, I'm not going to make more of it than there is. I've got so many other things on my mind, but I do envision at some point, looking Dom Capers in the eye, shaking his hand or giving him a hug or something and saying, this is pretty cool. This is pretty cool that he and I are back here together to open the season, and it'll be a great challenge.
All right, thank you, Coach.
Thank you.